time, I'll call the August 13th meeting of the West Memphis Utility Commission to order. First item is to approve the minutes for the June 11th meeting. You receive them in your packet.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Holmes, second by Ms. Brown. Any additions or deletions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Minutes are approved. Second item is the July safety report.
Good morning, all. All right, we've got, continuing on with this trend of having some good numbers. 149 days since last report, and that brings our total up to 298 days since the last lost time injury. That recordable score July should be June as well, 0. So we've only had the one for year to date. It brings our incident rate to 2.2 for July, and today's incident rate would be 2.1. Now, I think the last time we spoke in a meeting, I said something about our heat indexes would be getting up, and just to kind of keep you up to date with what we did on that. With the cooler situation, we did purchase 1 gallon coolers and passed them out. So everybody has their own personal 1 gallon cooler to get at least 2 gallons of water every day to stay hydrated. So that's helping in the social distancing and gathering around the communal area to try to get water out on the cruise. And it's also providing adequate water to stay hydrated. And then we spent a lot of time this summer, the COVID situation kind of shut down our Cdl training and trying to get our Cdl license. Had 4 that we worked intensely, went through a learning curve, even myself, on how to get them properly prepared. And luckily to say we had 4 out of 4 pass on the same day. They got the Class B licensing. And that's going to carry into another group that we've got some new hires. We're going to have to go through that process as well. And so I've learned a lot through that, and it should expedite and help them to pass on probably the first try. Other than that, I don't have anything else unless somebody's got any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
You did.
Yep, Tom here.
Next item is personnel, but before we start that, I would like to recognize Mayor, Honorable Mayor of West Memphis has joined us.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, sir.
See.
And Todd will do the personnel.
All right, getting started, going over just some of our initial numbers. We've had, as you can see, we had 2 new hires in between June and July in the electric department. We had a new hire in the meter, and we had a new hire in engineering, but we also had a resignation in engineering. So we were lucky enough to be able to hire somebody immediately from that department due to some issues that arise because of COVID, that we were able to find somebody that would adequately satisfy our needs for the person we left. The person we left was voluntary. Me and Ward actually did an exit interview with that person, finding out, why are you wanting to leave? And it was predominantly due to the fact that they're getting closer to home, and her mom and dad. So it was Miss Madeline Stokes, who was our electrical engineer. I hate that she left us, and she's got a bright future in front of her, but we've been able to hire somebody I think will be able to satisfactorily fill those positions. Okay, now, so that's our numbers. You can see we still have we still have 10 open positions in the departments. Still working on trying to get those filled as we continue to move forward. going through that. We normally go through and have those people here. We only have one. Most of the workers, I'm gonna let them stay around. Let's start out with the new engineer we hired, Peyton Smith. He is in the room. Peyton. He is, I guess, originally from Hernando, Mississippi. Is that right, Peyton?
Yes, sir, I still live there.
Okay. And is a graduate from the University of Memphis with an electrical engineering degree. We were lucky enough that
He's not from Mississippi?
he's not a Mississippi State guy.
No,
I know,
you slipping, man.
I'm slipping a little bit, ain't I?
No, he really is. He's an Ole Miss graduate too.
Oh,
I'm really, you know, and Horton had to throw that one in there, didn't he? You know, but no, he has an electrical engineering degree from the University of Memphis. We were lucky enough that due to, he was originally hired by a industrial customer, and they had some COVID issues where they've had to cut back, and he was unfortunately let go. Well, lucky enough for us, we were able to swoop him up, and he talked about the stability of a city job and how unstable manufacturing is. And as y'all know, I came from manufacturing originally, and I can attest to how unstable that job is. And you get into a good job where, you know, it's stable, it's good for a family environment also. The other ones, actually, I'll just move down the meter department. David Johnson is a new hire, control tech. He is an Academies of West Memphis graduate.
right.
He actually came in he's right now just an apprentice, but I think immediately when he gets his CDL, he will actually move up to Controls 1, because he did dual enrollment out at ASU Mid-South. He's actually done a year's worth of mechatronics training with ASU Mid-South, so he was already working towards his controls type of degree while he was in high school. He's actually, last summer, worked with us during the mayor's summer jobs program. So this guy, we kind of learned a little bit about him. He's shown, Mario's really pleased with his attitude and what he's done, and he, like I said, while at the academies, he was dual enrolled, graduated high school, and has a year at ASU Mid-South through their program already. Okay, so put him heads above about trying to come in and start that. We have 2 lineman jobs that we just filled. One of them, Matthew Roberts, is a second-year lineman we just hired. Matthew, or we go by Matt, left us about a year ago and saw how great the money was out on contract tree trimming, and I think he realized that, okay, it's not always, more money is not always the best. And we had already spent 2 years worth of expenses on him, so we're giving him another shot. And everybody, we talked to the senior lineman guys, and they wanted to bring him back. It's a guy that we've already spent 2 years worth of time on, and we just hired him back, so he's coming in as a second-year lineman. And then at the first of the year, he will be able to enter back into the apprentice program, will be as a third year. Kay Triplett is a guy that used to, just local guy from Marion. They hired in, and he's going to be a groundsman. So he'll be entering the apprentice program in the first of the year, because you have to start that program at the first of the year. So some local guys that we think will make some good contributions and hopefully make West Memphis Utilities their home for an extended period of time. And I think that's all I've got on personnel. Any questions associated with that?
Okay, thank you, Todd.
No, we need to do this one. Go ahead and do this one, and then
I'll
we'll
do
do
this
this
one.
other. So,
Okay.
yeah. Is this one I need him here, right?
Morning.
How's everyone doing today?
Fine.
All right, today is presenting the opening bids for Station 9. Station 9 is our second critical lift station or pump station for our collection system. We're doing some modification, including a structural, adding a third pump, and increasing pumping capacity. So we got 2 contractors that bid out this project. It looks like Landmark, looking at $759,000, and Chris Hill's at $1.1 million. So we're asking for approval. We took it to City Council last week and got it passed to y'all. So yeah, any questions?
What was the difference in the two? That was-
Well, Chris Hill, really, they're short-handed with coronavirus, and they're doing work for us right now. So,
I make a motion, we accept all markets.
yeah.
Have a second? Motion by Ms. Marshall, second by Mr. Holmes. Any further discussion? I would like, have we done work business with Landmark before?
Yes,
Okay.
they're doing Station 15 right now.
Oh, okay.
That's being actually commissioned today.
Yes.
That's the one on Ingram where we put all new pumps in and everything. And they also did Station 8.
That's correct.
It's very similar on the structure part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
They also did Station 1, that's on
There
Woods.
you go.
Okay. Any further questions? All in favor of approving Landmark construction for $759,000? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Now,
We're going to skip this one. Our city attorney has a doctor's appointment, so I want to make sure that he's around for a couple others that have some legal ramifications. Also, just to talk about this, the one that just got approved, and also the one we're fixing to approve. And here, I'm going to flip through it, flip down, and that's pretty small, but it is a little bit. But there it is. All right. So I need this one moved up, just so that makes sure that our city attorney is still here and available for this. But, and what this is the initial start of our cap plan. Station 9, what you just approved was one of the projects that were associated with our cap plan. And our cap plan, again, is our corrective action plan that we submitted and approved to ADEQ, okay, to get our bypasses, our sewer bypasses and our sewer sanitary sewer overflows under control. Remember, we have till December 31st of 2023 to get these projects done that were outlined in that cap plan. The first one, that $750,000, that was not a budgeted item as far as in the initial budget, but as we approved the cap plan in March of 2020, okay, and then it was approved by City Council and signed, I'm trying to remember, it was either first meeting of April or second meeting of March. I think it was the first meeting of April. City Council also approved that administrative order that was sent to us by ADQ, which then put in effect this cap plan, okay? So those are not budgeted items at this time. What I plan to do is the items that we had in our city where we've had emergency work, like the sewer rehab issue that we had over on Avalon on Broadway, that originally was not a budgeted item. I'm gonna bring these items to us all at once and do a budget amendment at once, and we'll line item out. The slip lining that Ward's gonna present to you is not a budget item, but it is something we need to get done. So we're gonna do all those at one time. Just to give you a heads up, next month, I probably will want to do a joint meeting with Commission and City Council, because I'll have Michael McBride with Stevens coming and presenting to us our options on doing a bond issue, okay, and how that will work. We need to do a bond issue to facilitate the monies that is needed to pay for these projects, okay?
and it was explained to me a little bit, and I don't want to get too much detail. He told me we could retro back the reimbursement, thank you. So the monies we're spending this year, I can actually, once we do the bond issue, I can go back and allocate them to this year's funds, okay? All righty, all right. So what I'm needing y'all, if y'all have, in y'all's package, y'all had a engineering contract that's been reviewed by myself and the city attorney for hiring Fisher and Arnold to do a design modification on the wastewater treatment plant. The engineering part of it, or the legal part of it's pretty straightforward. The engineering on it is there. I think, as most of y'all know, probably the thing was the sticker price that was on it. So, but when you're doing a $25 million bond, and I can tell you, our city attorney, is one of the things we've always been able to very favorably get in our favor. They hold 100% of the liability. They'd have no, you're better at, what is it though? What is the right word?
What are you talking about, the indemnification?
They can't indemnify themselves.
The city can't, by law, municipality can't indemnify under the state of Arkansas law as it stands, and so we always have to put in language, and Todd knows this because he knows a lot of the changes I make, and so we always change indemnification to say that only as allowed by Arkansas law, and we make sure obviously that Arkansas law applies. So that's usually the main things I'm looking for from a legal standpoint. And they already put those changes in there because we've dealt with them before and they know what language is preferred.
And as y'all know, this company is the company that we actually, is our engineering firm. They represent us in front of ADQ through our administrative order and our corrective action plan. So they are our engineer on, I guess, staff or on record with ADQ. Thank you, Ward. That's the right word.
Told me that the other day.
Explain that $375,000.
That is during construction for them to be on site. So that number is if we want them doing site inspections. We have not fully decided on the process. We're going to do a design. Once we hire them, we're going to get them, myself, Ward, and we're going to go up and talk to some sister cities who are also doing the same thing. They're actually using construction managers to oversee the project, and also the construction manager is fully involved during the design process, because construction guys can sit there and tell you sometimes, hey, build it this way and I can save you money because it still meets standards, but here's why. Engineers might want to put something, right on the edge. Well, don't put that right there. Move it to the side so where I don't have to have certain, fall restraints or safety issues, or I can get into some. So we have not decided if we hire a construction manager, the construction manager will be the on-site inspector. Okay, and we would not use them for those services.
So if we use them, they can charge us up to $375,000.
Yes, correct.
Sarah's on their hourly rate.
Yeah, it's on there, but it's based on how much they go out there. But that's a max.
That's a ceiling, yeah.
Yes.
Not the fee.
Right. Correct. The fee is the first number, the 1,000. I know.
Two companies.
The construction manager costs us too, so.
Yeah, and that's the key.
You're paying it one.
You don't
It's either you-
want to even call that number, do you? You
Yeah,
don't
it
even
hurts
want
my
to say
feelings
it.
every time. I know it does.
Man, good gracious.
I know.
It's called value engineering.
Right. And what you can do is actually hire a construction person and do value engineering, and they're not involved, or you can hire a construction manager who is involved through the whole process in does, and I'll tell you, the city of Jonesboro just recently did some major modifications also with their wastewater treatment facilities, and actually are doing some others, and they're using a construction manager who comes in and sitting there and fully involved in the design process, so that, hey, and that's what they call a value engineering. It's actually a construction guy that knows what's going to have to be done during construction.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Holmes to approve Commissioner Arnold, second by Ms. Marshall. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And then if we could do the slip lining, which is going to have to, also, because it's right here, so then we can go back up.
Well, after that last request, you're gonna love mine. It's so much longer. I want to ask you to waive competitive bidding on this project, slip lining of a sewer line on Wood Street. And what I'm going to cover is go into detail about the request, show you where the project's located, go over the process of repairing this line without having to dig it up, why we need to do it now, and why we need to waive competitive bidding. So the request is to waive competitive bidding to do up to $129,926 worth of slip lining on a failing sewer main under South Woods. And the project location is, so we're up here, utility. Woods is, Missouri's over to the west. Come down Missouri, changes to South Woods, and then come down to Jackson and Woods, and that's the repair area. If you're familiar with that intersection, it's a four-way stop, and there's a child daycare on the corner. It's about 1,200 feet of sewer line that needs to be repaired. It starts, the main starts on the north part of the project area, almost across from where the school, where they park the school buses. And it goes south all the way down to the other project we have here at Woods and Jefferson. The pipe, the sewer main's about 12 feet deep under Woods, and the last thing we want to do is dig it up. So they have this process where we don't have to dig it up, and we can run something like this, this thing here. You think of it as a big balloon, and they long balloon, and they pull it through the pipe from one manhole to the other. It's very flexible. You pressurize it with either really hot water or hot steam. It molds to the inside of the pipe. So if there's a failure in the pipe, as this line has, part of the bottom of the pipe's eaten out, some of the joints are eaten out, there's cracks all over. It's flexible enough, it goes in there and just molds, as I said, and then as you fill it up with the steam or hot water, it cooks. After 6 or 8 hours, it goes from being very flexible to solid. It's just like a plastic pipe. And so what they've essentially done is made the pipe inside our pipe, and it's smooth, there's no joints in it. So even though the inside diameter of the pipe's been reduced, the flow characteristics are just as good or better because of the smoothness of the pipe. And
How is that at keeping tree roots and things like that out?
really good. We have a few tree roots on this project. Where did they come from? I don't see any trees, but there's some roots that have got in here. So here's what it looks like. This is South Woods, The project kind of starts at the manhole behind this, where this photo was taken, and it's under this second line of slabs in the travel lane. That car is at Jackson turning, and this is where the daycare is. And you can see there's been repairs. This has been a long problem. It's been growing slowly, and it's accelerated this year because of the high groundwater being sucked up through it, just like we've had everywhere else. But it's been repaired here, and right in through here it's been repaired. You can see here how much this slab is settled, and this is what we got a call from, or Amanda got a call from the daycare concerned about how this slab had dropped. This is their back driveway for their employees, and that X marks the spot where the worst failure in the pipeline is. We had the pipeline cleaned and TV'd just to confirm that this is the appropriate repair method, and right there was the worst spot.
Have we used this before?
We have. We
We've
have.
used it before.
Yes, sir.
It's been successful.
Yes, this is, it's been out in the market for decades. It's a proven technology.
What's the lifespan?
A long time. 30 years.
I had some of this work done at my facility last spring. The guy told me 30, 40 years.
So then they come back and bust it out and put a new one in. So it's not like we've boxed ourselves into something.
What's the diameter of that line?
It's a 12, starts at 10 inch, goes up to 12. And this can accommodate that.
We save a lot of money too.
Yes, sir. We're going to get to that in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here's another failure on the street. Dark hole. And not to be a fearmonger, but here's what happens if you leave that dark hole. This is further south on that line, and we lost it in the spring with the high water. We're getting a bid right now to repair this, and it's going to, we don't know how far back up we've got to go, and we don't know how far behind the photo we've got to go. We're assessing that now. The camera couldn't get through there, so so we're going to be, it's one of those where we start digging, we'll keep digging until we stop, and then we'll bring the line in to meet this construction area. So, as you may remember, over on West Walnut, we had a similar situation, and that project went on for months, and at one point, it cost to repair 10-foot section, or 1-foot section was $3,000. So we're looking at 1,200 foot here of repair for a fraction of that. So we got to do it now before it gets worse. Yes, sir.
This line is so bad that you can't run a camera down. So
It's trickling through. Fortunately, we're very fortunate this is a low volume line. So the camera's about this big around, and then, you know, it only needs about that much to get through. So, good question. We will be putting bypass pumps on it though in a couple of weeks, shutting the whole line down. So why competitive bids? Again, I've gone over the price. The job is too small. The company that developed this technology has got a big operation down in Batesville, Mississippi, in situ form. We've been trying to get them up here to talk about this project and a number of other projects for months. AJ met with them in Nashville at a conference. Trisha Arnold, who does a lot of work with them, has called them and said, hey, at least answer the phone call. I've talked to them several times. Oh yeah, we're going to come over. This job's not big enough for them. And late last year, we had a project on the street bidding that included some lining and manhole rehab And we couldn't get anybody to bid on it. We had to reissue the job without the slip forming and aligning and just do the manhole rehabs. So Amanda had a project over by the high school on Pierce and used these folks. And AJ got the information from her. They're down in Horn Lake. And this is the type of work they do. They work with small municipalities on very small jobs. And this is their niche. So they came up, they're interested in doing the work. And one of the things I know the mayor and the city council hate is getting something done on the emergency clause. And we have enough time that if we move forward with this request to the city council, we will not need to ask to be put on the emergency clause. We've got enough prep work that by the time we finish.
That's going to be more on the next meeting agenda, right?
Yes,
The next Thursday.
yeah. After hopefully approval here, we'll move to
So I already know what I
city clerk office, yes. And why are we so late in this? It's all the groundwater. As you know, we've had a whole lot of projects. They've all been flooded. And we're just finishing up at Woods and Jefferson, hopefully next week. The river flooded the project 2 weeks ago. We had to pull off it, move somewhere else where the depth was shallower, and we're hoping to get back on that Monday. The river is going to be close to 5 feet on the gauge, which puts it around the water table here about 190 feet. So that's going to be. Then we'll get to this the next week. Yes, sir.
Okay. The line has to be repaired before they can slip form.
We want the failure so we know how far.
Right.
We don't want to. We don't want to have to dig up some stuff we just repaired or stop too soon.
Are we
So
going to repair that, or is that going to be a contract?
that's a contract with Chris Hill. They're doing a estimate for us now. We'll put it in because they're doing the work at Woods and Jefferson. That's about 1 and 2 manholes down the road. And so that job, though it was expensive, we're really close to budget on that. So we're viewing that as a change order. It's guilty by association.
But they were the ones that didn't want the other bid.
Yes, that's because they're still down here doing this work. And they like to dig and pour concrete and stuff. They'll do a pump station rehab, but this is the kind of work they really like to do. So, and they told us, we're going to bid the job, but if Landmark's bidding us, they'll probably get it. So. Yeah. But we've been really pleased with them. If you've not been over to the West or Walnut project here, they cleaned that side up. It's really, they did a great job. And we didn't even have to ask them. That's just the way they work. We've never had any safety issues with them. They put the trench boxes in. They do everything by the book. So we're real pleased to be working with them. That concludes this presentation, unless there's some questions. The request is that we move forward to the City Council with your approval, asking for the waiving of bids on this project.
So moved.
Have a motion by Jerry Burns, second by Ms. Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passed. And that is for competitive bid.
Waiving competitive bids, and I'm sorry, one thing I didn't address is why there's a range from $69,000 to $129,000. They can tell us exactly how much it's going to cost to line the pipe. We've got service connections that come into that pipe. Half of them don't go anywhere. The service connections were put in when the pipe was first put in back in the 50s. And there was hope, I guess, that there'd be buildings on both sides of the street. And you go down Woods, the west side is mostly a big empty field, and there's not full development on the east side. So a lot of the lines that come into it have never been used. So we're going to seal those up. And AJB are working with them to identify the active service lines that need to be sealed. And those things cost $6,000 a piece, so we don't think there's more than 10 of those that need to be done. So that's what the range is. It's not to exceed. But I couldn't give you an exact number. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussions? Okay. Now we're going back to, we did pump station 9, didn't we?
Yeah, and then we
Okay.
let me go back on environmental special.
Yeah. Good environmental section.
Okay. What y'all have in front of y'all is a job description of an environmental specialist. What that is, as I talked about at our last, back in May, you know, went through kind of our aging, maybe I didn't say that right.
No, I don't think so.
As our department heads and those people are getting older and aging, more mature, we need to start coming up with creative ways to start to backfill some of these positions for future reasons. Two of the major positions that I'm struggling with right now is and very important to our staff, Ms. Denise Bosnick, who is our Director of Environmental Quality, and Mr. Andrew Bass, who is our water treatment plant operator. Okay, Mr. Andrew has a T4 water license, what is required to run that water treatment facility. He's down there day to day. Okay, and some of the major issues is the passing the test in order to go and have the certifications to say I am able to do it. Currently, on the utility staff, there is only 2 people that have a T4 license. That's myself and Mr. Andrew. We were working on getting more people with those licensing as we hired them. Our engineers, staff was working on those licenses. But when COVID hit, there's no more. You got to have certain training also to do that, so that's been delayed a little bit. But what we're looking for is a person that we can bring in a groundwork, and they would immediately start looking at doing the training that is required, not only, and they would be they would work in that department. As y'all know, I currently have an open position in environmental quality, but that is a person that I think she had that used to go out there and all they did was put samplers out, pull the samples in, and then they would help the lab person. What I'm looking at doing, in that position has not been filled, what I'm looking at doing is replacing that position with, so the staff, the amount of people we have on staff would not go up. I'm just wanting to upgrade that position to this person that we're looking for that has some technical capabilities, or maybe from some other areas that we can replace those 2 positions, okay? And they would come in and immediately start training with both personnel and learning those positions, and then be able to use them in the future and groom them from the ground up. Don't know where we're going to find that person. Maybe there's somebody that's already out there that's looking for a change, or we might have to hire somebody directly out of school with the associate's degree. And as you can tell, we're looking for somebody who has a biology degree, a chemistry degree, just some type of something where they deal with understanding, you know, chlorine and all the things that go on in learning wastewater also. I mean, so there's multiple fields that you get those basics understandings. I mean, there are some associate's degrees that are specific to wastewater. If they can learn how to do a wastewater treatment plant, they can run our water treatment plant, because
you know, that's more complicated than our water treatment plant. Yes, our water treatment plant is very, very important, but the knowledge it takes, understanding, treating that water, making it good water is harder than what we have to deal with. So what I'm asking is for the creation of this job. We will not be increasing any staff, okay? This position has been open long enough this year that we currently, within our budget, we do not have to make any budget amendments to address this position change.
It's a great idea.
And we're trying to still keep our staffing at the numbers, and I've got to start grooming people from bottom up, and hopefully they feel this is a place they want to be their home and be here for a long time, and, you know, and try and, if anybody has suggestions of other stuff, I'm always willing to listen, because this is one of the things I'm really struggling with.
Be nice to get them from Arkansas.
I agree.
No,
Actually,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
actually, not necessarily Arkansas,
But locally.
but some of the areas we were thinking is Arkansas State. I mean, there's no reason we can't get somebody from Arkansas State, or if there's some type of associate's degree from ASU Mid-South, or a local guy that's went through some stuff. And I think that's the key, is getting people local to your community that want to just stay in the community. There's always something said about, this is my home. You know, people always want to come back home. You know, everybody says, I want to leave, you know, and then when they leave, they go, you know what, this place wasn't so bad. You know, my wife wanted to get out of Starkville, Mississippi, like, and then when she left, she's like, you know, Starkville was a pretty nice place.
I make a motion that we approve the creation of the environmental specialist job.
Okay.
Motion to Mr. Holmes, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Ross. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, real quick, Miss Denise, did everybody get a copy of it? Okay, at the beginning of the meeting, we went and passed out, it's a cross-connect, no,
About cross connection control standard.
Yeah.
cross-connection control,
That-
yeah, okay. I was about to say CCCP, and I was like, okay, I don't know the acronym, so I was gonna learn it. Okay, what that is we've had visits from the state, and the state is saying, look, and what cross connections is literally, it's, if we have an industry out there that makes a certain product or does something, makes something that could potentially harm our water system, you have to have a device. Most of y'all know them as with backflow preventers, okay? You have to have those devices between you and their system, and their personal system. It keeps, in other words, if they create back pressure, or if you have a broken line and the pressure on our line drops below 20, you could have back siphonage. That potential ordinance, we passed out. We would ask that you just review it this next month, and we'll bring it before you for approval. The city attorney has not, he had previously looked at it. We've made some changes recently. I'm just getting it out in front of y'all in advance. We will also have some others. This is something we need to get. We're having issues with, we do currently send out every year asking our commercial customers who are required to have these, we say, hey, we need you to get these tested. They have to be tested yearly, okay? And they have to prove that they're working. They have to hire a certified technician, and they have to prove. We're having issues with requiring them or forcing them to get that done, because there are, right now, there's currently no penalties or ramifications if they don't. That's what this is kind of doing, is saying, look, if you don't do this, then we can come out there and shut your water off, basically, if it goes far enough. And again, this was being developed because of an audit that we recently went through from the state. And that was a recommendation. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, this is required, you don't enforce it, the state comes back.
That's correct. And I can't answer that. I guess did he mention any potential
No, he didn't.
penalties?
No,
He just,
at that time, no.
but again, it's one of those things, if they start documenting that, hey, we told you to do this, we told you to do this, and you do nothing about it, I mean, it's the Arkansas Department of Health.
Yeah, they did ask that we look at doing an ordinance instead of policy where we could have some enforcement. Because I have had in the past several people that will just refuse to get that.
Well, it's probably not expensive.
About $100 or $150 a year.
They don't want somebody to do it.
You're right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
also, if you have a lawn irrigation system, you have to have that
You're
back
supposed
road on it, and you'll have to have it tested.
For commercial customers only,
Oh, okay.
not residential.
No, we're
I
not
remember we
residential.
discussed this one
That's
time
right.
before.
It's not, plumbing only addresses commercial properties, not residential.
Yes.
Again, this will be on, for the next meeting, but I just wanted to get it in front of y'all, it's a long read. The other thing that was in your packets was my 2019 audit. The auditors could not be with you, they're in continuing education classes today. So they will also be at our next meeting, that's there for y'all's, for our next meeting, okay? All right, and before we go on to the next one, just some good news. I'll try to throw out some good news. I passed out, or it was in your packets, a survey that's done by Entergy's personnel that they ask everybody in the Entergy's footprint of Arkansas, they ask us what our rates are, our fuel adjustments and all this. And then they do an analysis of that and send it back out to us. That was our, as of second quarter 2020, for 1,000 kilowatt hour usage over a year. You can see where we're at, we're second. I can tell you, if you look from there, if you go to a 1,500 kilowatt hour customer in 2000, we do drop to fourth, but those top four stay the same. If you look at the top four and you look at the yellow bar, you can see there's a pretty big difference between those top four and then everybody below. But again, and I always point this out because most of those others have what they call franchise fees added onto their bills. In other words, a portion of theirs goes to a separate line item, okay, called franchise fee, is then paid to the city, okay, and it's not in their rates. I transfer 5% to the city, and it's included in my rate. So if you take 5% from that, I think we're the lowest in the state. Okay,
We need to let this be known everywhere.
I agree.
That's great.
I mean, that's great. I mean, that's, I think having our own utility, if you look, top three of the top four are all municipal utilities. I mean, with our meeting with Jason Carter, he pointed that out. I mean, this city, a long time ago, buying the assets of the distribution system and having its own municipal is one of the best decisions that, you know, those leaders did a long time ago. And you can see that based on that. There's a lot of people throughout our county and the rest of the state and this country that would love to see those rates. All right. All right. And we're going to go over this. Ward's going to do, he's done the presentation, done all the legwork. I'm not looking for approval. I'm wanting to show you where we're at. This was an idea we came up with. I want feedback. I'm looking for, you know, what do y'all think? Y'all tell me. You know, I also want to bring that to city council. I want this to be a working collaboration because I realize what this means, okay? I don't want this was our initial thought of where we think we need to go, but I want feedback on this. I'm not looking for approval today, okay? This is just informational basis today and an initial recommendation of what we think. If you think we need to do something like potentially, instead of an immediate 35, maybe spread that over 2 years and then go to a rounding or something. But again, I'm looking for feedback and, on how we need to move forward.
So this is a subject we hate to talk about, and that's why it's in black. All my presentations are in black. But we want to keep the department in the black, so we've got to talk about it. We have a well-run utility. As Todd just was talking about, the electrical rates are possibly the lowest in the state. Our water rate also appears to be the lowest in the state. So our services are affordable and they're reliable, and we want to keep it that way. And as we've met over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of talk about the sewer issues we've had. We've got the manholes falling in the sinkholes. We've got the EDQ cap and consent order. We're dealing with I&I. We've got residents that can't flush their toilet during the rainy season, and then we're looking at doing the sewage treatment plant upgrade. Nowhere in any of these discussions has there been any talk about our water system. And that's, again, because it's a robust system, it's been reliable, but we need to take some steps to keep it that way, to keep it reliable and to increase its resilience. And we need to be able to fund it, because the last thing we want to do is start drawing on the electrical income, and then electrical, I said the rates are low, but we're selling less electricity than we've been doing. Over the last 2 years, the sales have dropped. Some of it's due to the weather. Some of it's due to 25 years of selling energy efficient appliances, and it's starting to show up. Our population base is not growing, and it's starting to drop. So we don't want to endanger that, and that's why Todd wanted to bring this up now, while we still have some time to talk about it. The water system, the production and distribution system, has some far fewer moving parts than the sewer system, but it's got some critical bottlenecks that I want to tell you about, and we need to see in the system. With that, I'll get started. What I'd like to do is just give you a quick overview of the water production and distribution system. Some of the maintenance that we do behind the scenes we don't ever talk about, and some of the upgrades that we should be doing. Look at our current rate structure, do some sample bills for residential and commercial that show the average bill and the impact of what we're suggesting will be on it. And go over an analysis that the Arkansas Rural Water Association did at our request about our rates. As Todd alluded to earlier, we go to off-site locations for training so we could get our distribution licenses and our treatment licenses. So I've got my distribution license and was working on the treatment license this year, and all that's been canceled. But everybody in the engineering department is going for this training, and we go to the Arkansas Rural Water Association. They're one of the certified training sites. And when we were there, that was one of the things they made us aware of. We asked them, go do analysis. So Kristen Carpenter, who's away on a military leave right now, she would assign her that project. She worked with them, and I'll touch on what their thoughts are, and then go over how the proposed rates would match any, or help fill any shortfall that we have. Our production and distribution system, we have 6 wells, 5 of them are in use. The sixth well has never been put in. It's about in use. It's about 20 years old. We have some issues with that. That was one of Kristen's projects. We either need to rework the well, redesign the well, or put in some filtration capabilities there. That well is located up by the industrial park, and it has turbidity issues, which means when you pour a glass of water, you can't see through it. And it's been analyzed, and it's just clay. It's just really tiny bits of clay that don't settle out. And usually when you do a new well, you see that, and after you run it for 6 months, it clears up. And so it hadn't happened. So the well needs to be redesigned, the pump needs to be redesigned, or we need to put in. So we're working on that. We have one water treatment facility. Just for the good of the community, we are thinking about a second one, so we have some redundancy in case anything happens. Yeah. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen stuff that has happened that we, earlier in our life, we never thought would happen. So we got to expand our thinking on some things. We have the 4 elevated tanks that are all in use. And in the backyard here, we have 2 other tanks, an in-ground tank and what we call the logo tank, the big blue tank. That's kind of the charging tank for the system. And then we have the 5 pumps that push the water out into the system. So that's what we're looking at. And unlike the sewer system, I have 42 lift stations all over the city. Almost the entire treatment and distribution network is located in the backyard here. The water comes in from the wells. There are 3 wells here. There's a 4th one in sight, so they're all very close together. And that's another reason we want to get that other well in production is as the aquifer ages, we may see needing to be further out, larger radius from where we are. So anyway, they all come in here. They come into the treatment plant. I don't see the red dot, but it's the building over there on the left. There it is. And then the water comes into the aerators, and the chlorine's pumped up from the treatment plant into either where it goes into the storage tank or the aerators. And goes into the storage underground. It's pumped into the charging tank. And then we have this manifold here with the 5 pumps that pump it out into the distribution center. So almost all the work that we want to do is located right here in our backyard. Yes?
I'm sorry, before you go back, I don't know if you know this, maybe Todd. When we had the boil order 4 or 5 years ago due to a failure, where was that?
Right there. That manifold, that big manifold across there, it blew apart.
Yeah.
And when it blew apart, the amount of tanks we have in our system right now, they probably turn over. We use about, during a summer day, we could use about 10 MGD a day. Out in our system, we have 3 MGD of storage. So those tanks are technically turning over 4 times a day. And it's truly not enough, but again, to build a tank, right now, it doesn't suffice. But that's the key of having that second treatment facility located out there where that other well is. So if we have an issue here, that we have the back.
I guess that kind of leads into my next question is, how old is all that?
Ward,
How apt to a repeat, not necessarily that particular spot. We had happened once before, it happened again.
Yes, and that's part of this assessment and drive we want to increase our resilience so it doesn't happen again. There's some things that we can do and we need to do, and we want to be funded to do it. And I'm going to touch on one of the things that we need to do here in a few minutes on that, but yes. Thanks. Don't want to repeat with that. Yes, sir.
The industrial park tank, are we using it for?
It's part of
It's
our
part of,
system.
it's in the system, the well is on.
The well at the bottom of it's not,
Not,
but
okay,
the
where-
tank is.
Okay.
It's part of the system.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Just, the tank is,
Not fully.
right, it's a 1 million gallon tank. The bottom 300,000 gallons is dedicated to Family Dollar for fire protection.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's actually 2 pipes in that tank. Okay, but it is,
We're using 700,000.
Yeah. So, back on to some of the things we need to be doing. In the background, we have these tanks inspected by contractors. Last thing we went was a failure. The average cost of a repairs to a tank is $390,000. We don't do that every year. It's a 5-year inspection, and with the last series of inspections and estimates, that was the average cost. Well inspections, we like those inspected periodically. They do what they call a drawdown to see the health of the aquifer. Part of that cost is just pulling the pump up from the bottom of the well and checking it out. We did have a well failure last year on the well behind the church. I had to bring in one of the other wells online, so it's aging. We'd like to prevent as much of that as possible, but we need to have enough backup. On the unlikely experience that 2 of the wells go down at the same time, so we've got to have some more depth. The aerators, they have not been inspected in a while. They need to be inspected. Water goes into it, and gets exposed to the air as much as possible. It helps with the quality of the flavor of the water, takes out some of the iron. Yeah, we can live without it, but we don't want to. And we need to get in there and check on those. It's been 10, 15 years since we've done that. It's been a while. It's time for that. And one of the things we really need to get on here, 4 and 5, we need to put a flow meter on each of the wells. We calculate how much water we produce based on the original pump curves from those wells. And we're grossly overstating how much water we produce. It makes it look like we have a huge leakage factor where we don't. And we need these meters, one is just to help us assess the health of the aquifer, if we're seeing the volume decrease suddenly, or it helps us assess the pump. Again, if the production suddenly decreases, right now we wouldn't know that. So we need flow meters on each of those, the wells, and we need flow meters on the manifold that we just talked about. It sends water out in 2 different directions, and again, we need to know how much we're sending out through those 2, again, to help us assess the performance of the aging equipment there. We need to put the other well into production. It could be as little as $400,000 if it's just a redesign of the well, changing out the pump. One of the issues we think is the pump is oversized and is sucking too much water out, and we can't throttle that pump back. It's not a variable speed. So that might be a very simple solution, but we got to do a study on it and redesign it. Worst case, we have to put in a treatment facility. It's completely different than this one. And You add a chemical that makes the clay settle down and clarifies the water, but then you've got to clean the filters and you've got to dispose of that, and it's kind of the last resort. And we're lucky that all the other wells run clear. You don't need to do that. We have a very simple, straightforward water treatment facility here, and we want to duplicate that over at the other one. So going to expanded water treatment is really the last thing we want to do. And then we need to construct a treatment plant over at that location. We make our own, so one way you disinfect the water, keep it safe, is with chlorine, which is bleach. I mean, the bleach you buy at Walmart can be used, but it's very corrosive, very dangerous to have large quantities of that sitting around, and we make our own. So you know what salt is, sodium chloride, and it turns out if you run a weak current through it, it separates into chlorine gas, and that's what we do. We run salt water through a small electrical charge. It produces the gas in line, and it goes into our system. So we don't have to buy gas, we don't have to buy chlorine, we make it in line. It's the safest way to do it. And since our electrical rates are so cheap, it's the cheapest way. And then, to your point, Jerry, one of the things we want to do is look at building a shelter over those pumps. They're just sitting out in the open. And it'd be nice to have them in a building, environmentally controlled. One of the issues, you know, if those controls get jammed with a bit of ice or something, it leads to bad things. So that's what we want to prevent. So here's our rates. And like most communities, we have a multi-tier rate. That's really complicated when Philip Sorrell calls me and says they had a prospect that wants to use 500,000 gallons of water. How much is that going to cost them? We'll have to sit down and do this. And it's a kind of old school. We've got a lot of communities that are getting away from it. And we'll see in a minute that our production costs are more than what our rates are, and the way we've gotten to this far without any bigger financial issues is the minimum charge, which we tie back to a meter charge. But 7.7 cents per 100 gallons after you pay the meter charge of 3,500 gallons, 6.7 cents, and then 5.8 cents for everything over 50,000. That didn't add up too much. Here is now, so went back 3 years. Got 3 years of sales, averaged the number of connections we had, and came up with this average bill. Now, you may not find anybody out there with this exact bill, but it should be representative. So the average residential customer, oops, hitting the wrong button, is 6,725 gallons. And using that multi-tier rate that was showed on the other side, their bill comes up to $6.74 for water. Now, I tell you, at my house, our bill is $2.89. We don't use that much water. For our commercial customers, their minimum is higher, it's $4.23, and it can go up to $40.42 depending on what size meter. Residentials, we all have the same size meter, but the commercials, they can have larger meters depending on what they need. And so most of our commercial customers run through all 3 tiers, and that's getting all this in, per 100 gallons. So their bill is $37.08 on average, before tax. So I always tell Philip that. So the analysis by the Arkansas Rural Water Association was that it cost us 7.5 cents to produce 100 gallons of water. When you throw in the depreciation cost and equipment, it's actually cost us 7.8 cents per 100 gallons. And they project that we have a shortfall of revenue of $380,398 a year. So that explains why we're at the bottom of this list. This are you go to these different water companies, and they all figure, they have different rates, different tiers. Some of them do a cubic feet of water, gallons, thousands, hundreds, whatever. So I just standardize it to the average West Memphis customer's bill. I priced it out. And we are almost 50% of Marion, and then it just a huge jump all the way up. And as I said earlier, some of the cities have started going to the flat rate. So Memphis, Forest City, and Little Rock have a flat rate. They don't do what about the theory. And then here's the sewer. We'll talk briefly about sewer because our sewer rate for the average residential customer is 132%. So here's what we're proposing. On this chart, on the left is the current bill breakdown, and on the right would be one proposal of increasing the meter charge, minimum meter charge, and then charging all water usage at 7.7 cents per 100 gallons. Now the analysis was it cost us 7.5 cents per 100 gallons to produce the water. So we've got a 0.2 cent profit built into that. But what really covers our cost is increasing the meter charge. Because as I said earlier, that's where we get our money to do the upgrades and the maintenance. That would raise the bill from $9.64 to $9.08. Percentage-wise, a huge number. Dollar-wise, less than 2 cups of coffee at McDonald's in a month. And then what we'd like to consider is going to an automatic cost of living increase every year. That's based on an index. And we see some communities that do this. But cap it at 2%, because that's what the Federal Reserve, they hope inflation gets up to 2%. I don't understand that. I kind of like it at 0.5%, but we would cap it at 2%, never go more than 2%, and it could be less. So I priced this out, worst case, that it went to 2% the second year, and you can see we're not talking about a big increase. It's 16, 18 cents. So our average sales then would go up for residential. If we did the flat rate and increased the meter charge, $227,000, and the second year it goes to $244,000, which is short of the $380,000 that the association projects. But we would share the pain with our commercial customers same way. Raise the meter charge from $4.23 to $5.82 and put them on a flat rate. And then their water bill would go from $37.08 to $48.02. And that would be almost an $11 increase. Again, percentage-wise, a huge number, but I think if you look at the operating costs of most commercial facilities, personnel, insurance, rent, all those other things, will make this number look so small. And then the second year, it'd go up 90 cents, and we would see $137,000 increase to the budget revenue and $149,000 a year. So here I just put all that in the same chart. With a reminder, we're trying to get to $380,000, and we would hit it if we did a 2% raise the second year.
If we have to go to 6.
Yeah, if we have to. If we don't, if we only do a 0.5%, we're short. But you know, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars short instead of hundreds of thousands.
And just on that real quick, the reason, again, that's not a brainstorm from Todd and Ward, that is other cities have done that several years ago, where they're putting in a CPI index that it's automatic. So where it's just, whatever inflation goes up, our rates go up that same amount. So it's done one time.
Well, and you've got to remember, salaries go up, cost of everything else goes up, and it's, you know.
And so it's a retrofit on the water. And so I would not put that on electric, so, but it's on the water.
Okay. That is just covering our current water cost, right? You didn't really figure in.
Where we're going in the future with sewer. Again, that number, did you have any more slides of it?
Yeah, there's one that shows went out, because the mayor's got a question. Before I move on to that, that's another slide. Yes, sir.
Well, basically what I want to say, I think I've been talking with you, Ward and Todd. I've been saying for the longest, we are long overdue for this water rate increase. And I see where you're saying going on 2%, but I'm just asking why not go 5%? Because I think I heard at one meeting, we can go up 5% and still be the lowest water rate in the area. And we shouldn't be scraping the bottom of the barrel for pennies when we just gonna do what we need to do to get the money that you all need with all the expenses. You have truly been justified with all the things you all do with the water, so let's go and do it and keep it at a rate where it'll be affordable for our citizens, but I see 5%.
Well, the initial year one was a 35% increase
On the meter.
on the meter charge. Okay, so that's a 35% year one is what we proposed on that year one meter charge. And then be reducing that, and then from there it's an increasing. So I don't know if you're meaning have some higher steps, years 2, 3, 4, a little bit more to go ahead and.
No, what I was thinking about, I know I understand on the meter charge.
Okay.
But if you're gonna break it down 2 years, do 2.5 this year, 2.5 next year.
Okay.
And get to what it needs to be.
Okay.
That's a fine kind of feedback, but
Yeah,
look at
again,
Mark.
I'm here, and I put out there, and y'all know this, when we do our yearly reviews, our monthly financial reports, y'all see electric is subsidizing water and predominantly subsidizing sewer expenses. And with the expenses I'm fixing to have that I have to address, that's going to be through the bond issue, I got to start addressing that. We did secure a 5-year contract, and I can tell you, I'm already in discussions with them about some other issues and looking at maybe extending that long term with some potential developments that are happening in our area. So, but one day, it's going to be a day that our electric cannot subsidize our water and sewer, and that's what I want to work towards, and that's my goal. So that's where I'm putting some of this at, and we just wanted to start with here. If you think we need to address this at a larger scale, I am willing to address that at a larger scale. I'm glad I hear that feedback. So.
You're showing the shortfall revenue and the slight increase. That's not including any of the expenditures on those multiple $100,000 you showed on
There's a mix.
meters, the building,
Yeah,
and all
right.
that. So if we do one of those projects, we still got a bigger shortfall there. So,
I
that's,
appreciate you being conservative, but I'm kind of like the mayor.
we got lots to catch up.
I would rather go ahead and fix something.
The study was based on 8,100 connects. That was an average over the last 3 years. It's been drifting down.
So 8,000 residential customers? or
We're now 1,100 commercial.
So
But the lower the.
9,000 people, entities, will share pennies a year to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
So I agree, let's pay for it. It needs to justify its existence.
So to complete the picture then, I got a couple more slides. this is what happens. So we're not talking about directly changing the sewer rate. There's a lot of issues that, you know, irrigation water is metered without the sewer. So this is just a ballpark. We don't, unfortunately, cannot query our database upstairs to find our largest users and things like that. So we're just making estimates. So we have to look at both, the water and the sewer. So based on what I've shown, the water sewer rate would go up $5.42 for an average residential customer, and it would go up $25.40 for our average commercial customer. And that would bring us in to two. Now, again, to everybody's point, one project would use all that up. We've got one sewer project now that would have gobbled that up. And, but that was our starting point. But what it does, put it in perspective, and so the feedback we need to hear is how far up this list do you want us to go? We were trying to keep the line right in here, and what we've proposed, as far as I know, leaves us still the lowest utility in the state. I've done this search as much as I could, and I have not found anybody other than Marion that comes close to us. So that's what we want to think about, is how far up that list we want to go. Now, one other thing that I didn't put out on a slide, again, I can't query our database upstairs, but talking with Todd and in the office, tried to come up with some of our biggest users. We know who our biggest user is, and they have a $50–60 million facility here. They've just done an expansion. There's a lot of people, and they use a lot of water, but their water bill is $3,500 a month, and it would go up $1,100. That the one company that would suffer or would have the biggest impact. We were concerned about that because they've made a lot of investment. They've shifted production here. I can't speak for them, but I don't think that's going to put them out of business or make them regret that they moved here. Some of our other ones, looked at our hotels. That's another big, and they've had a rough year, so I went back a year, and like one of our newest hotels, they would see an $8 increase. One of our larger hotels would see a $41 increase. The business in town with the most square footage under roof, they would see a $230 increase. So we tried to look out there and assess our impact. So like the feedback, we can circle back around. I got all these as formulas. I can just put in a new number and give the answer. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, West Memphis is the most cost-effective city to live in and the most cost-effective city to do business in. I mean, we did the rates that you are proposing a lot higher. And I guarantee the ones of you all that lives in Marion, and you compare your Marion bill to what our bill right here in West Memphis, it's a no-brainer.
I used to live there. Todd lives there. He brought me the rate sheet.
While I agree, and I'm just as proud as anybody to say that we have the lowest utility rates in the state, I don't care what that says, I like your 5%, the franchise rate. We can give it away and be the lowest in the state, but that's not sustainable.
And what I like is, the reason I pointed that out is those are city municipals that have very, very low electric rates. I want you to look up there and look at where their water and sewer rate is.
Yeah.
We need to look at going,
We have to. But I want to ease the pain for our owners also. I think that we didn't do our due diligence over all the years we've been doing this, and I think that's where I think we failed our owners, is we should have been doing this over the last 20 years.
If we've been doing it just few steps.
Right.
Yeah, we could.
And
Well, I've always preached, worked down on this. Each one of them should stand on their own. It should not be a cost center, and it doesn't have to be a profit center. But water and sewer should pay for itself.
With some extra,
Well, yeah.
or improvements, or
Right,
repairs.
we've got
to
to
pay for
have
that
a
$1
profit,
million.
but not a huge profit.
I mean,
Right.
But
a water tank, the Mid-America water tank, Amanda was here when that tank was done. It was 20 years old when, after we finally went through and refurbished it. That's $500,000 to go through, pull it out of service, paint it, and do the repairs that needed to be done on it.
And if you don't do those repairs.
It's
you
gonna
get
fall.
penalized or.
Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well,
So you-
it's like I heard somebody say, only in the south is the new bridge 30 years old. All our new stuff is old. And at some point, we're gonna have to start replacing it.
Well, that-
And again, as y'all know, the sewer system, I want, when we have issues in our city, okay? When I say issues, we have a lot of rain, and we're getting a lot more rain, it seems like in the winter, where it used to be snow or ice, it's now rain the past couple of years. It puts a major burden on our sewer system, and that sewer system is older than most of us that are in this room, if not all of us, you know, and it needs to be fixed, and that's part of the funding. Y'all see the numbers, I tried to show y'all those. Our water system as we're going right now, somewhat breaks even, but that's without capital expenditures, that's just day-to-day operations breaks even. My sewer system, and so anything we can do to start addressing that, I think when y'all see some of the numbers that are gonna come before y'all, you know, next month, I'm looking at a $25 million or $30 million bond. I was originally thinking of using some of our reserves, but with interest rates where they are, I think we do the bond, because interest rates on some of these are in 2% or one. If you do a 15-year, they project about 1.64%, and so as proposed, he will be able to give us the full detail. Again, that changes every day. So I think it'd be better for us to do a bond issue, borrow the money, keep our reserves, and if we get into some other concerns or issues, you know, we have the reserves to address them.
Well, and another point too, that if everybody can think of, if the sewer system is in need of repairs, each day you go without making those repairs, it gets worse. Each time you have a significant rainfall event, it eats away more of the sewer.
And it costs more. The slip lining we're fixing to do, that is what we should have been doing over the past multiple years. So these sinkholes where these lines have collapsed wouldn't have been happening.
It
But
would have been cheaper.
yes, in the long run, it would be cheaper. You wouldn't be, and that's what we will be starting to looking at, is doing a yearly inspection. Yearly, have this line, okay, these are, until a point, I have a slip line and start to affect. Okay? And just to make sure, when he says flat water rate, that's the usage per 100 gallons is flat. In other words, where ours is declining, the more you use, ours would be, no matter how much you use, like our electric residential rates and our, all the others, the usage number will be just a flat number. It's not that it's $21.26 no matter how much you use. I just want to make sure there's no discrepancy in that.
Not $21 per month or 8 million gallons or $21 per
Right.
rate gallon.
And I will say this, and I think this guy uses a lot of water in his business, so if he's saying do it, then
I
it
want
knows
water,
that.
I gotta keep going, and I'm
And-
scared we're not gonna have water.
And I also know he's told me several times when he goes to these meetings,
Yes.
and he's talking to other people that have ice houses, and he's comparing his water rates to theirs,
And electric.
and it's,
There's
you
no
know,
way you can make a bag of ice that cheap.
so. And I'm glad the mayor spoke up and stated that, because that's one of the things, I think across the state of Arkansas, when you look at our water, sewer, and electric rates, I think we're the low, we would be the lowest in the state. I guess I'm gonna leave that with y'all. What I'll probably end up doing is at a next meeting or so, I'll be asking if y'all, at any point you want to give me feedback, I'm more than, you can always give me or give a ward. I'm looking for feedback from y'all. I would like to then take this, and once I get feedback from y'all, present it to city council. I'm sure they're gonna look at this and see this when it's posted online. Mr. Willis, Councilman Willis will be saying we discussed it, but again, I want, feedback from y'all, what y'all think.
Well, Dana and I had a little sidebar.
That's
I
all.
need to cut everybody out. But to your point, we've got a lot of space between us and Jonesboro. And they're kind of our competition when it comes to industries and whatnot. And we try to pull people from Jonesboro to live here and take our jobs, fill our jobs. And then we could look at a multi-year plan of implementing the capital improvements that we need and see if some other rate between where we're at and Jonesboro would get us there, and then drop down to, we could do a multi-year higher rate, and then I think that was your point, do a higher rate for a few years and then let it sunset to whatever.
To the CPI.
CPI, something like that. We can do that, or we could all, several of us sit down and brainstorm, or just like to keep the process moving.
I think the move needs to be a slow, steady increase to get it to where it stands now, including those multi-$100,000 that we need to spend. It's not glamorous, it's just.
We can live without electricity, we can't live without water.
Right.
If you got water, you can't live without a sewer for very long.
I can start a generator and keep my house good. I can't pump water out of the bio and drink it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your work. I know that's hard. Anything else to come before us? Mr. Ross? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ross, second. All in favor? All opposed?